The air inside Stirring Automotive smelled like rust and broken promises. Metal shavings caught the morning light, streaming through grimy windows suspended like frozen rain. Jamal Carter's hands moved across the transmission housing, with practiced certainty, fingers reading the machinery the way blind men read Braille. 36 years old, and his knuckles already carried the geography of hard labor scars, mapping every mistake, every moment he had pushed metal and flesh beyond their limits. The SUV was new, expensive, still carried that showroom smell underneath the motor oil. Someone's pride. Someone's proof they'd made it. Jamal didn't think about who owned it. Couldn't afford to. Every vehicle was just another puzzle, another problem with a solution buried somewhere in the chaos of gears and gaskets. His coveralls hung loose on a frame that used to carry more weight. Muscle memory kept his shoulders squared, even as exhaustion pressed down like a physical thing. The fabric was stained, permanent shadows of oil that no amount of washing could lift. He'd stopped trying 3 years ago, stopped caring what he looked like when the mirror showed nothing but a ghost wearing his face. The pressure gauge in his hand was military issue, old enough that the manufacturer's stamp had worn smooth. He didn't think about where it came from anymore, didn't let himself remember the hands that taught him how to read its trembling needle. Some tools carried too much weight. You used them anyway because they worked when nothing else did. "Carter, you're burning daylight on that transmission." Marcus, the shift supervisor, 42 and already counting down to retirement, didn't look up from his clipboard. "Numbers, man. Everything reduced to time cards and efficiency metrics. Customer wants it by 3. Jamal didn't respond. The pressure reading was off just a fraction, but in mechanical systems, fractions meant failure. He adjusted the valve timing, felt the engine's rhythm change under his palm. There, the sweet spot where everything aligned, where chaos became order, if only for a moment. "You hear me, Carter? 3 o'clock. Got it." His voice came out rough sandpaper on wood. He'd stopped wasting words on conversations that didn't matter, stopped explaining himself when silence was cheaper. Marcus walked away, boots clicking on concrete. The sound echoed in the cavernous shop rhythm, keeping time with the pneumatic tools, the air compressors, the radio someone had tuned to classic rock. The same songs on repeat day after day until the music became white noise, until you stopped hearing it at all. Across the shop floor, 3 younger mechanics clustered around a lifted pickup truck. Their laughter carried sharp and bright. Fresh out of trade school, still thought the job was about cars instead of survival. Still believed competence mattered more than politics. Jamal had been that young once, that certain the world operated on merit. "Yo, Carter." One of them, Tyler, 23, with a neck tattoo, and the kind of confidence that only comes from never having lost anything important. "How'd you know about that valve timing issue? You didn't even pop the hood." Jamal wiped his hands on a rag that was beyond dirty, moved to the next task. Oil change on a sedan. Simple work. Mindless. "Sound." "Sound," Tyler laughed, looked at his buddies. "Man's got supernatural hearing or something." Or something. Jamal slid under the sedan, grateful for the darkness beneath the chassis. Down here, he was alone. Down here, nobody asked questions he couldn't answer without lying. The drain plug gave under his wrench, and old oil ran black and thick into the catch pan. 15,000 miles between changes, way beyond recommended intervals. People pushed everything until it broke, then acted surprised when failure came calling. He watched the oil drain, counted the seconds, mind wandering to places he spent most of his energy avoiding. Night missions, oil, dark water, the weight of other people's lives. He pushed the thoughts away, focused on the work. 27 cars on the schedule today. Time and a half on Saturdays, which meant maybe he could make up what he'd lost last month when Naya's emergency room visit had eaten through his savings. Asthma attacks didn't care about budgets. Biology didn't negotiate. "Hey, is that the old man's special toolbox?" Tyler's voice again, closer now. Kid couldn't leave well enough alone. Jamal slid out from under the sedan, found Tyler standing next to his workstation. The military green case sat open, tools arranged with geometric precision. Everything in its place. Everything serving its purpose. Order in a world that made no sense. "Don't touch that!" The words came out harder than intended. Tyler held up his hands, grinning. "Relax, man. Just curious. That's some serious gear. Where'd you get it?" "Doesn't matter. Come on, there's got to be a story. Those are NATO stock codes, right? You military or something. The question hung in the air. Jamal's jaw tightened, teeth grinding against words that wanted to break free. 5 years. He'd been a ghost for 5 years, and ghosts didn't tell stories about when they were alive. Just tools. He closed the case, locked about it. Get back to your truck. Tyler's smile faltered, something flickering across his face. Offense, maybe, or curiosity sharpening into suspicion. Whatever, dude. Just making conversation. He walked away, but Jamal felt the stare linger. Felt the question mark Tyler was now carrying, the itch that would make him dig, make him ask around. Small shops were like small towns. Secrets didn't stay buried long when people had nothing better to do than excavate each other's lives. The morning bled into afternoon without mercy. 11 cars down, 16 to go. Jamal's back screamed, vertebrae compressed from years of contorting into spaces human bodies weren't designed to occupy. He swallowed 2 ibuprofen dry, chased them with lukewarm coffee that tasted like burnt regret. Lunch break came at 1. Most of the mechanics filed out to the break room, microwaved meals and loud opinions about sports teams. Jamal stayed at his station, ate a protein bar he'd bought in bulk because individual packaging was a luxury he couldn't justify. The chocolate coating had melted and resolidified so many times it had turned white chalky. He ate it anyway. Fuel was fuel. His phone buzzed. Text from Mrs. Chen, the neighbor who watched Nia after school. 3 words that made his stomach drop. Inhaler empty. Urgent. He stared at the screen, numbers calculating themselves in his head. Prescription refill. $60 at the pharmacy. He had $38 in his checking account. Payday wasn't until Wednesday. 3 days might as well be 3 years when your 8-year-old couldn't breathe. His fingers hovered over the reply. What could he say? That he was sorry, that he was failing at the one job that mattered. He typed and deleted 5 different messages before settling on something that felt less like confession. Picking up after work, keep old inhaler, still few doses left. The lie sat bitter on his tongue. The old inhaler had been empty for 2 days. They'd been rationing, spreading out doses, playing Russian roulette with Naya's respiratory system. He was gambling with his daughter's life because he couldn't afford not to. Mrs. Chen's response came fast. She's struggling. Needs soon. He closed his eyes, pressed his palms against them until colors bloomed in the darkness. In another life, money hadn't been the question. In another life, he'd made decisions that cost lives but never had to count coins to save one. The bitter irony wasn't lost on him. He'd flown million-dollar aircraft, orchestrated operations with 8-figure budgets, held responsibility for dozens of highly trained operators. Now he couldn't scrape together $60. 2 hours. Promise. He'd find the money. Somehow. Maybe Marcus would advance him something. Maybe he could pick up an extra shift tonight, work until midnight, show up tomorrow at 6. Sleep was negotiable when your child's lungs weren't. Yo, Carter. Marcus appeared at his shoulder clipboard, ever present. Need you to train the new guy on brake systems. He starts Monday. Can't. Schedule's full. It wasn't a request. Jamal looked up, met Marcus's eyes. Saw the calculation there, the petty power of a man whose only authority came from a title on paper. I'm on time and a half today. Training comes out of that. Don't get smart with me. You want the hours you play ball. I'm playing ball. 27 cars don't fix themselves. Marcus's face hardened. Watch your attitude, Carter. Plenty of mechanics looking for work. The threat landed like it was supposed to. Jamal swallowed what he wanted to say, the words that would feel good for 5 seconds and cost him everything. When do you need me to train him? Monday morning, 2 hours unpaid orientation. Unpaid. Consider it part of your job responsibilities. Jamal's hands curled into fists, knuckles white. 2 hours unpaid meant 2 hours he could have worked, could have earned money Naya needed. But arguing meant Marcus would find other ways to cut his hours, other ways to punish defiance dressed as discussion. Fine. Marcus walked away, satisfied, little victory secured. The shop operated on these tiny cruelties, death by 1,000 cuts, everyone scrambling over each other for scraps. Jamal had seen real combat, real enemies, real stakes. This wasn't that. This was just slow suffocation disguised as employment. He returned to work, hands moving through muscle memory while his mind spun through calculations. $60 for the inhaler. Electric bill overdue $95. Rent in 2 weeks $800. Nia's school field trip permission slip $25 he'd already told her they couldn't afford. Her face when he'd said no. The way she just nodded smile forced already learning to swallow disappointment at 8 years old. The wrench slip scraped across his knuckles. Blood welled up bright red against oil-black skin. He grabbed a shop towel, pressed it against the wound, watched the fabric turn crimson. Pain was clarifying. Pain reminded you that you were still in a body still bound by physics and limitations in the grinding machinery of a life that didn't care about your best efforts. "Hey Carter, you good?" Walter, the old mechanic, 62, and held together by stubbornness and prescription pain medication. He'd been at Sterling longer than anyone had seen owners come and go, had outlasted 3 recessions and countless layoffs. "That's bleeding pretty good." "I'm fine." Walter moved closer anyway, examined the wound with the casual expertise of someone who'd seen worse. "You're gonna need stitches." "I've had worse." Something flickered across Walter's weathered face, recognition maybe, or memory. "Yeah, I bet you have." The words carried weight that Jamal didn't want to unpack. He pulled his hand away, wrapped the towel tighter. "It's nothing. If you say so." Walter didn't move, just stood there with the arms crossed, studying Jamal the way you'd study a puzzle with missing pieces. "You know I was Navy. Long time ago. Saw a lot of things. Met a lot of men who carried themselves a certain way." Jamal's entire body went still. "That's good for you. You carry yourself that way. Like a man who's been places, done things. Like a man who knows what it can. You should get back to work, Walter." "Probably." But he didn't move. "Just want you to know, whatever you're running from, or whatever you're trying to forget, doesn't make you less of a man. Makes you more of one, actually. Choosing to be here doing this work, taking care of your daughter. That's harder than anything I ever did in uniform." The unexpected kindness hit harder than Marcus's petty cruelty. Jamal couldn't look at him, couldn't let Walter see whatever his face might reveal. "Thanks. You need anything at all, you let me know. Understood?" "Understood." Walter walked away, and Jamal exhaled oxygen he hadn't realized he'd been holding. The old man knew. Maybe not details, maybe not specifics, but he knew. And somehow that knowledge sat different than Tyler's nosiness, different than the suspicious looks from people who saw a black man in coveralls and made assumptions. Walter's knowing felt like being seen, like being remembered. He couldn't afford to be remembered. The afternoon crawled toward evening. 23 cars done, 4 to go. His phone buzzed again. Mrs. Chen. No message this time, just a photo. Nia sitting on the couch, small chest rising and falling, too fast, too shallow. Her brown eyes wide with the particular fear of not being able to breathe. The fear every parent of an asthmatic child knew intimately. The fear that made you bargain with God, with fate, with whatever cosmic forces might be listening. He typed fast. "Coming now. 30 minutes. Left the 4th car half finished, grabbed his jacket. Marcus intercepted him at the door. "Where you going?" "You've got 2 hours left." "Emergency, my daughter." "Emergency's not my problem. You leave now. You're out 2 hours pay." Jamal stared at him, at this small man with his clipboard and his power and his complete inability to understand that nothing mattered except the child who couldn't breathe. "Dock my pay." "And you're working Sunday to make up the time." "Fine." He pushed past Marcus out into the parking lot where his truck waited. 15 years old, paint faded to something that used to be blue exhaust system, held together with wire and prayer. But it ran. That's all that mattered. Running beat walking when your daughter needed you. The pharmacy was 12 minutes away, traffic willing. Jamal made it in 8, pushed the truck harder than he should have, engine rattling protest. He parked crooked across 2 spaces, didn't care. Didn't have time to care. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed overhead, that specific frequency that made everything feel slightly unreal. 3 people ahead of him in line. He counted his breathing, tried to remember the meditation techniques someone had taught him in another life. Calm the sympathetic nervous system. Control what you can control. His turn came. The pharmacist, middle-aged woman with tired eyes and a name tag that read Susan, pulled up Nia's information. Carter Nia albuterol inhaler. Yes. That'll be $60. He pulled out his wallet, counted bills. 3 20s. That was the electric bill money. The food money that we can't afford this, but we can't afford not to money. He put the bills on the counter, watched them disappear into the register. Susan handed him the small box prophetic miracle wrapped in cardboard and plastic. You know there's a generic version that's cheaper. This is the generic version. Right. She looked at his hands, at the grease under his nails, at the bandage he'd wrapped around his knuckles. Making calculations he'd learned to recognize. You doing okay? The question was too big, too loaded. How did you answer that? How did you explain that? Okay, was a moving target, that survival came in gradations, that every day you didn't completely fall apart was a victory. We're managing. The pharmaceutical companies have patient assistance programs. If you qualify financially, they'll help with costs. I'll look into it. He wouldn't. Didn't have time to navigate bureaucracy, fill out forms, prove his poverty to strangers who'd decide if his daughter's breathing was worth subsidizing. Thank you. He walked back to the truck, sat in the driver's seat, let his head fall back against the headrest. $60, gone. Just like that. And next month they'd need it again. And the month after that. Nia's asthma wasn't going away. The attacks were getting worse, more frequent. The pediatrician had mentioned specialists, more expensive medications, the kind of comprehensive care that required insurance he didn't have. His phone rang. Mrs. Chen, I'm heading over now. 5 minutes. Hurry, Jamal. She's really struggling. He hung up, started the engine, ignored the warning light that had been on for 3 weeks. The truck would hold together. It had to. Everything had to hold together just a little bit longer, just until he could figure out how to stop drowning. Mrs. Chen's apartment was 4 blocks from his own, same building, different floor. She'd been watching Nia after school for 2 years, charged half what the actual daycare wanted, took payment late when necessary. Good people still existed. He tried to remember that when the world felt like it was designed to crush anyone without resources. He took the stairs 2 at a time, knocked on her door. She opened immediately, face creased with worry. She's in the living room. Nia sat on the worn couch, her small frame hunched forward, hands braced on her knees. Breathing technique the ER doctor had taught her. Lean forward, relax shoulders, slow exhale. Her brown eyes found his, and relief flooded her face even as her lungs struggled. Hey, baby girl. He crossed to her in 3 strides, knelt so they were eye level. Dad's here. Got your medicine. He pulled the inhaler from the box, shook it, removed the cap. Deep breath now, nice and slow. She wrapped her lips around the mouthpiece, pressed down. The medication hissed. Jamal counted. Hold it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Breathe out slow. They waited. He watched her chest, counted respirations. 28 per minute. Too fast still. 1 more, same thing. Second dose. Her breathing began to ease, respiratory rate dropping. 30 seconds. A minute. Her small hand found his, squeezed. Thanks, Daddy. Always, Nia, always. He pulled her into his arms, felt her heartbeat gradually slow against his chest. This moment right here. This was why he'd left everything behind, why he worked jobs beneath his skill level, why he made himself small and invisible. Because holding his daughter while she could breathe was worth every sacrifice. Mrs. Chen appeared with a glass of water. She was asking for you, kept saying her dad would fix it. Jamal accepted the water, helped Nia drink. I appreciate you calling me Mrs. Chen. Of course, she's a good girl. You're a good father. The old woman's voice carried the particular kindness of someone who'd raised children, knew the weight of that responsibility. You work too hard, Jamal. Not hard enough. Harder than most. Don't sell yourself short. He wanted to believe her, wanted to accept the compliment without the bitter taste of inadequacy. But $60. That's what his daughter's breathing cost today. Tomorrow, it might be more. The month after, even more. He was playing defense in a game rigged against him, and defenders always lost eventually. Come on, Nia, let's go home. She stood still, shaky, but breathing easier. Grabbed her backpack, waved to Mrs. Chen. Bye, Mrs. Chen. Thank you for the snacks. Anytime, sweetheart. They walked down the hallway, down the stairs, out into evening light that painted everything gold. Nia slipped her hand into his and he squeezed gently. 8 years old. Already learning that life was hard, that breathing took effort, that her father's love came wrapped in limitations he couldn't overcome. Dad, can I ask you something? Always. Why do I get sick so much the other kids don't? The question carved through him. How did you explain random biology to a child? How did you make sense of suffering that served no purpose? Sometimes bodies work different. Yours just needs a little extra help with breathing. Is it expensive? He stopped walking, knelt down, met her eyes directly. This child who was too smart, too perceptive, too aware of the math that governed their lives. Money doesn't matter, Naya. You matter. Your health matters. We'll always figure it out. But you worry about it, I can tell. She could tell. Of course she could. Children read parents like books saw through every performance of strength, every false smile. I worry about lots of things. That's what grown-ups do. But you don't need to worry. That's my job. Okay. But her face said she didn't fully believe him, said she carried her own weight, already understanding in her eyes that was far too old. Their apartment was on the third floor end of the hallway. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, kitchen, so small, you couldn't open the refrigerator and oven at the same time. 700 square feet of space that cost too much and offered too little. But it was theirs. Walls they'd painted together, rooms where Naya's artwork covered every available surface, home in the only way that mattered. Inside, Jamal started dinner. Spaghetti, simple, cheap, stretched across multiple meals. Nia sat at the small table doing homework, pencil moving across paper, tongue caught between her teeth in concentration. What's the assignment? Math, word problems. She looked up, face scrunched. If Johnny has 12 apples and gives away 5, how many does he have left? 7. I know that part, but why would Johnny give away 5 apples? Apples are expensive. Jamal laughed, real and genuine, the first time all day. You're right, Johnny's making poor financial decisions. Maybe he's being nice. Maybe, or maybe he's learning that generosity comes with costs. She returned to her homework, satisfied with that answer. Jamal stirred the sauce, watched her work. This quiet moment, this ordinary evening, this was everything. This was why men left glory behind. This was why heroes chose anonymity. Because coming home to your daughter doing homework beat medals and commendations and the respect of people who'd never held something this precious. Dad? Yeah. What did you do before you were a mechanic? His hands stilled on the spoon. Different jobs. Why? Rachel at school says her dad's a doctor. Sarah's dad is a lawyer. What were you? The weight of the question sat heavy. How much truth could he give her? How much of his past could he reveal without opening doors he'd spent 5 years keeping closed? I worked with machines, engines, same as now, just different places. Were you good at it? I was okay. Just okay. He turned, saw her studying him with those sharp eyes, intelligence that missed nothing. Yeah, just okay. Why all the questions tonight? We have to do family history presentations at school. Everyone's talking about their parents' cool jobs. Ah, there it was. The comparison trap, children measuring their lives against others, finding themselves lacking in a game nobody could win. Being a mechanic is cool. I fix things, keep people safe on the road. I know. I just wondered if you did other cool stuff too. Nothing cooler than taking care of you. She smiled at that, returned to her homework. But Jamal saw the question lingering, saw curiosity taking root. Eventually she'd dig deeper. Eventually someone would tell her things he didn't want her to know. That someday loomed like a storm cloud, always approaching, never quite arriving. Dinner was quiet, easy, the kind of comfortable silence that came from 2 people who knew each other completely. Nia talked about school, about her friend Emma, who'd gotten in trouble for talking during reading time, about the science project they were starting on plants. Jamal listened to ask questions, tried to be present even as exhaustion pulled at him. After dinner, they cleaned together. Nia washed, he dried, their routine, their rhythm. She sang while she worked some pop song he didn't recognize, voice slightly off-key but full of unself-conscious joy. He memorized the moment, stored it away with all the others. These were the good times. These simple, ordinary, precious good times. Bath time, story time. Nia picked a book they'd read dozens of times, adventure story about a girl who discovered she was secretly royalty. She knew every word, could recite passages from memory, but still wanted him to read it. Wanted his voice telling her familiar tales, wanted the comfort of repetition, wanted the reassurance that some things stayed the same. Dad, do you think people can be secretly special? Like special, but nobody knows. He turned the page considering. I think everyone's special in their own way. No, I mean really special. Like secret superhero special. Maybe. Why, sometimes I pretend I have secret powers. That I can breathe underwater or fly or something. That would be cool. His throat tightened. You are special, Naya. You don't need powers to be important. I know, but it would still be cool. It would. He closed the book, tucked the blanket around her small frame. Time for sleep, baby girl. Can you stay until I fall asleep? Always. He sat in the chair beside her bed, watched her eyes grow heavy. Her breathing was even now steady, the inhaler working its pharmaceutical magic. His own eyes burned with exhaustion, body screaming for rest he couldn't afford. Tomorrow was Sunday. He'd promised Marcus he'd work. Then Monday, the unpaid training. Then the rest of the week, double shifts, whatever it took to climb out of the hole $60 had dug. Naya's breathing deepened, shifted into sleep. He stayed anyway, watching her chest rise and fall, counting respirations he didn't need to count. Proof of life. Proof that today, at least he'd been enough. In the kitchen, he pulled out his laptop, ancient machine that took 5 minutes to boot up. Opened his banking app. $38 in checking. 200 in savings earmarked for rent. Credit cards maxed. He had no room to maneuver, no margin for error. One unexpected expense, and everything collapsed. He closed the laptop, rubbed his eyes. Somewhere in another life, he'd managed complex logistics, coordinated million-dollar operations, made decisions in split seconds that saved or ended lives. Now he couldn't balance a simple household budget. The absurdity would be funny if it didn't hurt so much. His phone buzzed. Marcus. Need you at 6 tomorrow. Big truck came in frame damage. 4-hour job minimum. 6. Which meant leaving Naya with Mrs. Chen early, waking her before dawn, rushing through breakfast. But 4 hours was 4 hours of pay. He couldn't say no. I'll be there. Good. And Carter? Don't be late. Sterling's doing shop inspections tomorrow. CEO's got a bug up her ass about efficiency. Victoria Sterling, the name carried weight in the shop, spoke in hushed tones, fear mixed with resentment. She'd inherited the company 2 years ago, ran it with an iron fist wrapped in expensive suits. Jamal had seen her exactly twice, both times from a distance. Young Severe moved through the shop like she was inspecting enemy territory. Didn't talk to the mechanics, didn't acknowledge them as human beings worth engaging. Just took notes, found faults, made demands. He'd met leaders like that before. People who confused control with competence, who thought fear generated respect. They never lasted long in real combat situations. Real leaders inspired loyalty. Real leaders understood that people fought hardest for commanders who saw them as more than tools. But this wasn't combat. This was capitalism. Different rules. Different consequences for failure. Sleep came hard, fractured by dreams that weren't quite nightmares, but weren't peace either. Mechanical problems that morphed into mission failures. Engines that became helicopters, oil that became water, dark and deep, and pulling him down. He woke at 5 body protesting movement, every muscle tight. Showered fast, dressed in clean coveralls he'd washed last night. Woke Nia, gently helped her dress, made quick breakfast. Toast and peanut butter, orange juice that was mostly water. She ate without complaint, used to early mornings, used to adapting to his impossible schedule. Mrs. Chen's expecting you at 6:15. Okay, Dad. Be good. Do your homework. I'll be home by 7. You always say that. Because it's always true. She hugged him tight, her small arms fierce around his waist. Love you, Daddy. Love you more, baby girl. Sterling Automotive at 6 in the morning was graveyard quiet. Jamal was first to arrive, unlocked his station, powered up the diagnostic equipment. The damaged truck was already in Bay 3, massive Ford F-350 with frame bent from what looked like a rollover, serious work, the kind that required precision and patience and skills most mechanics didn't have. He circled the vehicle, assessing damage. Frame rail bent 12 degrees. Suspension components compromised. This wasn't just a 4-hour job. This was 6, maybe 7. He pulled out his phone, texted Marcus. Frame damage worse than reported, needs 7 hours minimum. Response came fast. You've got 4. Make it work. Make it work. The mantra of impossible expectations, the demand to violate physics and reality because schedules mattered more than quality. He'd heard it before in other contexts, other situations where time compressed and decisions had to be made. You made it work because the alternative was failure, because adaptation was survival. He started the frame straightening process, hydraulic equipment, positioning with millimeter precision. This was delicate work metal that bent wrong would fracture, compromise, structural integrity, turn the truck into a death trap waiting for the right pothole. He worked slowly, methodically, checked measurements every 5 minutes. Better to take time than to send someone home in a vehicle that would fail catastrophically at 60 miles per hour. Other mechanics trickled in. Tyler and his crew loud and energetic, Walter quiet and observant, Marcus clipboard clutched like a security blanket. The shop came alive with noise tools and music and voices, the controlled chaos of men working on machines, problems being solved through sweat and competence. At 9, the energy shifted. Everyone felt it, that particular tension, when management appeared. Jamal didn't look up from his work focused on the frame alignment, but he heard the whispers, the sudden drop in volume. Victoria Sterling walked through the shop like she owned it, which technically she did. Heels clicking on concrete, tablet in hand, designer clothes that probably cost more than Jamal made in a month. Young for a CEO, early 30s, maybe face set in that particular expression of someone constantly looking for problems to solve through elimination. She stopped at different stations, examined work in progress, asked questions that sounded more like accusations. Her voice carried cold and precise, no warmth in the words. Pure efficiency, pure control. Jamal kept working, kept his head down. He'd learned long ago that visibility was risk, that drawing attention meant opening yourself to questions, scrutiny, judgment. Better to be invisible, just another mechanic in coveralls, nothing special, nothing worth noticing. What's the status on the F-350? Victoria's voice closer now. Marcus rushed over, the voice going up an octave. Carter's on it, Miss Sterling. Should be done by 10. Should be. Will be. Definitely will be. Jamal checked his watch. 9:05. No way he'd be done in 55 minutes. Not if he wanted to do it right. Not if he wanted the truck to be safe. He heard footsteps approaching, sensed her presence before he saw her. He finished tightening the frame clamp, measured the alignment. Still 3 degrees off. Needed more adjustment. You're Carter. Her voice was different, up close, not cold exactly, but guarded. Like someone who'd learned to protect themselves by never showing softness. He straightened, met her eyes. Yes, ma'am. This truck was supposed to be done 2 hours ago. Frame damage was worse than initial assessment. Can't rush structural repairs without compromising safety. Her eyes narrowed. I don't recall asking for excuses. Wasn't offering excuses, explaining reality. Something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe, or offense. People probably didn't contradict her often. The customer was promised 10 o'clock delivery. Then someone made a promise without understanding the scope of work. Marcus materialized, sweating despite the morning cool. Carter, watch your tone. Jamal looked at him, then back to Victoria. Ma'am, I can finish this properly in 3 hours, or I can cut corners and get it done in 1. Which do you prefer? The question hung there, challenge wrapped in professionalism. He was giving her a choice, making her complicit in whatever came next. Leaders who valued control hated being put in positions where their decisions carried visible consequences. Victoria's jaw tightened. 3 hours is unacceptable. Finish it in 1. Respectfully, that's not possible while maintaining structural integrity. Then you're not as skilled as your file suggests. The words landed like a slap. Jamal felt Tyler and the others watching, felt the moment crystallizing into something bigger than a simple schedule conflict. He could push back, could explain it exactly why rushing framework was dangerous, could detail every safety regulation she'd be violating. But he'd learned that logic didn't work on people who had already made up their minds. I'll do my best, ma'am. See that you do. She turned, paused, looked back at his workstation. Her eyes fixed on his toolbox, on the military green case with its faded markings. Where did you acquire military equipment? The question sliced through the noise of the shop. Everything went quiet. Jamal felt every eye turned toward him, felt the moment balance on a knife's edge. Surplus store. Those are restricted NATO tools. Surplus stores don't carry them. Maybe I'm misremembering where I got them. Her expression hardened. Military surplus is carefully tracked. Either you acquired them through proper channels or you didn't. Which is it? He met her stare, refused to look away. This woman wanted to pick a fight, wanted to find something to punish. He'd seen it before, people with power looking for opportunities to exercise it, to prove themselves through domination. I acquired them legally. If that's a problem, I'll bring different tools tomorrow. That's not an answer to my question. It's the only answer you're getting. Marcus made a strangled sound. Tyler's eyes went wide. Walter, over in his station, shook his head slightly. Jamal had just crossed a line, talked back to the CEO, refused to submit. In Victoria Sterling's world, that probably didn't happen often. Her face went cold, colder than before. Use standard equipment or don't work here. Am I clear? Crystal. She walked away, heels clicking rapid fire on concrete. The shop exhaled collectively. Marcus rushed over, face red. Are you insane? You just disrespected the CEO. I answered her questions. You challenged her in front of everyone. She challenged me first. She owns the company, Carter. She can challenge whoever she wants. Jamal returned to the frame alignment, didn't respond. What was the point? Marcus lived in a world where authority was self-justifying, where owners could treat employees however they wanted because money equaled righteousness. Jamal had lived in different worlds, had seen men with absolute authority use it wisely, had seen others abuse it catastrophically. Victoria Sterling was the second type. Tyler approached, grinning nervously. Dude, that was intense. Nobody talks to Sterling like that. Then maybe someone should. Yeah, but not someone who wants to keep their job. Jamal adjusted the hydraulic pressure, measured again. 2 degrees, getting closer. Job's not worth having if it requires you to compromise safety. That's real noble and all, but nobility doesn't pay bills. The kid was right, which made it worse. Jamal was gambling with Nia's stability, with their apartment, with the thin margin that separated house from homeless. All because he couldn't swallow his pride, couldn't nod and submit, couldn't make himself small enough to fit in spaces designed to crush people. He finished the frame alignment 90 minutes later. Not the 3 hours he'd wanted, but better than the 1 hour Victoria had demanded. The work was good, solid, would hold. But rushing it had left him with lingering doubts, small compromises that would probably be fine, but might not be. That might was going to haunt him. Lunch break came and went. Jamal ate another protein bar, drank water from the shop fountain that always tasted vaguely of rust. His phone buzzed. Mrs. Chen. Naya asking when you'll be home. Told her 7. Should make it. If I'm late, I'll call. She misses you today. The words hurt more than they should. He missed her too, missed the hours spent together, missed being present for the small moments that added up to childhood. But presence required time, and time required money, and money required work. Circular logic that trapped millions, that turned parenting into a part-time job you performed around the full-time job that funded existence. The afternoon brought 3 more vehicles. Oil changes, brake work, tire rotation. Simple jobs that his hands could do while his mind wandered dangerous territories. Thinking about Victoria Sterling's face when he'd pushed back. Thinking about the risk he'd taken, the professional suicide that might have been. Thinking about whether principles were worth poverty. At 4, Marcus appeared again. Clipboard. Always the clipboard. Carter office, now. Jamal's stomach dropped. He'd been expecting this, had felt the axe hanging all day. He followed Marcus to the small office at the back of the shop, windowless room that smelled like stale coffee and defeat. Victoria Sterling sat behind the desk. Marcus closed the door, stood beside it like a guard. She looked up, expression unreadable. Sit. Jamal sat, hands clasped in his lap, posture straight. Military bearing was hard to shake, even when you were trying to hide it. Even when showing it might make things worse. I've reviewed your personnel file, Victoria began, voice flat. You've been with Sterling Automotive for 3 years. Performance reviews are adequate. Attendance is acceptable. No major complaints. He waited. The but was coming. It always came. But today you demonstrated insubordination, challenged management decisions, and refused direct orders regarding safety timelines. I followed safety protocols. I'm not finished. Her voice cut like a blade. This company operates on efficiency and compliance. When I give an order, I expect it to be followed. When I ask a question, I expect a direct answer. You provided neither. Jamal's jaw clenched. Ma'am, structural repairs have specific requirements. I was trying to protect the customer. You were protecting your ego. You didn't like being told what to do, so you pushed back. That's unacceptable in any professional environment. With respect, you've shown no respect. You've shown disdain for authority, disregard for company policy, and a concerning level of arrogance about your own abilities. The words piled up, each one calibrated to cut. She was building a case, constructing justification for a decision already made. He recognized the pattern, had seen it in mission debriefs, in after-action reports, when commanders needed scapegoats, needed someone to blame, when complex situations defied simple explanations. I've decided to terminate your employment effective immediately. The room went silent. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Victoria's expression didn't change, cold as January. You're firing me for doing my job correctly. I'm firing you for insubordination and failure to follow directives. Jamal stood, legs unsteady. I have a daughter. I need this job. Then you should have considered that before challenging my authority. Something broke in Badiam, small and sharp. Your authority, you inherited a company. You didn't build it. You don't understand it. You walk through this shop looking for problems instead of solutions, treating mechanics like interchangeable parts. Authority comes from respect, from competence, from giving a damn about the people doing the work. You have a title. That's all you have. Marcus made a choking sound. Victoria's face went pale, then red. Get out now before I have you escorted out. I'm going. He reached for the door, paused. For what it's worth, that frame repair you wanted done in 1 hour, I finished it in 90 minutes. It's safe. The customer will drive home to their family tonight. That should matter more than your ego. He walked out before she could rub on through the shop, where every mechanic pretended not to watch past his workstation, where his tools sat in organized precision. His military toolbox. Evidence of a life he'd tried to bury. Tyler met him at the door. Man, what happened? Got fired. No way. For what? Being right at the wrong time. He walked to his truck, climbed in, sat gripping the steering wheel. $38 in his checking account. Rent due in 2 weeks. Naya's next prescription in 3 weeks. No job, no prospects, no plan. His phone buzzed. Mrs. Chen. You okay? Nia said you sounded sad on the phone this morning. He hadn't called this morning. Naya was reading him across time and distance, feeling his emotional state through whatever mystical connection existed between parent and child. 8 years old and already carrying his burdens. He typed slowly. Long day. Coming home early. Can you send her over in an hour? Of course. Take care of yourself, Jamal. Take care of himself. What did that even mean anymore? He started the truck, drove toward home through afternoon traffic, mind spinning through options that didn't exist. Unemployment would take weeks to process. Other mechanic jobs would call Sterling for references. Victoria would make sure he never worked in this industry again. Pride, principles, standing up for what was right, all of it meaningless when measured against his daughter's needs. At home, he sat on the couch, stared at walls covered in Nia's artwork. Crayon drawings of families of houses of dreams rendered in primary colors. She'd drawn them together. Her small hand guided by his larger one, collaborative visions of a future that felt further away with each passing day. His phone rang. Unknown number. He answered anyway, desperate for distraction. Is this Jamal Carter? Woman's voice, professional, unfamiliar. Speaking. This is Commander Sarah Martinez, United States Navy. I'm trying to reach Lieutenant Commander Jamal Carter, service number. He hung up, heart pounding, hands shaking. 5 years. 5 years of silence, of hiding, of building a life separate from that identity. They'd found him anyway. They always found you. The phone rang again. Same number. He stared at it, watched it vibrate against the coffee table, military past, calling through digital present. He didn't answer. Couldn't answer. That life was dead. He'd killed it, deliberately buried it deep, mourned it, and moved on. After 6 rings, it stopped. Voicemail notification appeared. He didn't listen. Didn't want to hear whatever they needed, whatever crisis required pulling him back into a world he'd left behind for good reasons. For the best reason. for the small girl who'd be home in 45 minutes, who needed a father more than the Navy needed a pilot. He went to the bathroom, splashed cold water on his face, looked at himself in the mirror. 36 years old, looked older, felt older. The man staring back was a stranger, someone who had been carved away piece by piece until only the essential core remained. Father. That's who he was now. Everything else was debris from another life. A knock at the door. Nia. Early. Mrs. Chen's worried face appeared when he opened it. She insisted on coming home. Said she had a feeling you needed her. Nia pushed past, dropped her backpack, grabbed his hand. Dad, what's wrong? Nothing, baby girl. Just tired. You're sad, I can tell. Mrs. Chen squeezed his shoulder. I'll check on you tomorrow. Thanks. The door closed. He was alone with Nia, with those impossibly perceptive eyes, with the child who saw through every wall he built. Sit with me. They sat on the couch. She curled against him, small and warm and present. You can tell me, Dad. I'm big enough. How did he tell her that he'd lost his job, that they might lose their apartment, that her medicine might become unaffordable again, that the thin ice they'd been skating on for 3 years had just cracked beneath their feet? Work was hard today. I made some decisions that didn't go well. Did you get in trouble? Sort of. Did you do the right thing? The question cut to the core. Was defending principle worth destabilizing their lives? Was he a hero or a fool? I thought so at the time. Then it was probably right. You always do right things. Her faith in him was crushing weight. She believed in a father who was infallible, who made good choices, who could protect her from everything. She didn't know that good men made terrible mistakes, that principles were luxuries poor people couldn't afford, that love wasn't enough when the mathematics of survival demanded more. I love you, Nia. No matter what happens, that's never going to change. I know, Dad. She looked up, smile small but genuine. We're Team Carter. Team stick together. Team Carter. He repeated it like a prayer, like an oath, like the last true thing he could hold on to when everything else fell apart. They sat in comfortable silence, his daughter's breathing even and peaceful, his own mind racing through scenarios and strategies and the impossible calculus of what came next. Outside, the sun set, painting the small apartment in shades of gold and amber light that made everything feel momentarily beautiful, even as darkness gathered at the edges. Somewhere his phone buzzed again. The Navy, persistent, always persistent. He ignored it, focused on the small hand in his, on the child who needed him to be just a man, just a father, just present in this single moment that was all they truly had. The world could wait. Duty could wait. The past could stay buried a little longer. Right now, in the small apartment, with its crayon-covered walls and its second-hand furniture, and its abundance of love, he had everything that mattered. He just had to figure out how to keep it. Morning came with Nia's coughing. Jamal was awake before the sound registered, body trained to respond to threats real or imagined. He found her in the bathroom, hunched over the sink, chest heaving with the effort of breathing through narrowed airways. Easy, baby. Nice and slow. He grabbed the inhaler, administered a dose, counted her respirations. 32 per minute, too high. The medication wasn't working as well anymore. Bodies built tolerance. Science didn't care about budgets. She leaned against him, exhausted from the simple act of oxygen exchange. I'm okay. I know you are. He carried her back to bed despite her protest that she was too big. 8 years old wasn't too big for anything. Sleep a little more. No school on Sunday. What about you? I've got some errands. The lie tasted familiar. He'd promised Marcus he'd work today, but that was before yesterday, before the firing, before his entire careful structure collapsed. Mrs. Chen will be here when you wake up. Promise, promise. He waited until she drifted off, then grabbed his phone. 17 missed calls, 12 from the unknown number that was definitely the Navy. 3 from creditors, 2 from Marcus, probably calling to gloat or collect his tools. He ignored all of them, texted Mrs. Chen instead. Emergency, can you stay with Nia today? We'll pay you Wednesday. Her response came immediately. Of course, don't worry about money. But money was the only thing to worry about. Money or the lack of it. Money that determined whether children breathed easily or struggled. Money that separated stability from chaos by margins thin as paper. The pharmacy opened at 8 on Sundays. Jamal walked there through empty streets, morning light, casting long shadows that made everything look like it was reaching for something just out of frame. He needed to talk to Susan the pharmacist, needed to beg for payment plans, for generic alternatives, for anything that would bridge the gap between what he had and what Nia needed. Inside, fluorescent brightness felt aggressive after the gentle dawn. Susan looked up from her computer recognition, followed by concern. Jamal, didn't expect to see you so soon. The inhaler's not lasting as long. Nia's having breakthrough attacks. That means the medication's becoming less effective. She needs to see a specialist. I know. The words came out hollow. Knowing what Nia needed and being able to provide it were galaxies apart. How much would a specialist visit cost? Susan's face softened with the particular pity reserved for impossible situations. Initial consultation probably 300, plus tests, prescriptions, follow-ups. You're looking at over 1,000. $1,000 might as well be 1,000,000. There have to be options, payment plans, assistance programs, something. There are, but they take time to process, applications, documentation, waiting periods. Meanwhile, my daughter struggles to breathe. I'm sorry, Jamal, the system isn't designed for people in your situation. The system wasn't designed for people. It was designed for profit, for shareholders, for everyone except the humans trying to survive inside its machinery. What about the inhaler? Can you give me a price break, anything? I wish I could, I really do, but corporate sets the prices. I just dispense what they tell me to dispense. He leaned against the counter, defeat settling into his bones. This was why he'd left the military. Not because of the trauma, not because of the guilt, but because he'd realized that all the valor and sacrifice in the world didn't matter when your child needed medicine and you couldn't afford it. Heroes didn't get health care. They got medals and hollow gratitude. There's a free clinic on 5th Street, Susan offered quietly. They see patients on sliding scale. It's not great, but it's something. Thank you. He pushed off the counter, turned to leave, stopped, when her voice called him back. Jamal, for what it's worth, you're a good father, the best kind, the kind who keeps showing up even when it's hard. The words should have helped. Instead, they highlighted everything he wasn't, everything he couldn't be. Good fathers provided. Good fathers didn't count coins while their children wheezed. Good fathers didn't fail at the most basic requirements of parenthood. Outside, the morning had warmed. He stood on the sidewalk, let sun touch his face, tried to remember what peace felt like. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Again. The Navy didn't give up. They never gave up. Persistence was doctrine. He answered before he could stop himself. Lieutenant Commander Carter is dead. You have the wrong number. Sir, this is Commander Martinez. I understand you have moved on with your life, but we need, no. There's a situation. A missing pilot, Gulf of Aden, 48 hours and counting. Send someone else. We've sent everyone else. The radar signature is unlike anything we've encountered. Command believes it matches patterns from Operation Black Tide. The words hit like ordnance. Black Tide. The mission that ended his career, that killed 3 men who trusted him, that proved sacrifice was just another word for failure when you couldn't save everyone. That operation is classified. Which is why we need you. You're the only surviving pilot who flew those routes. You understand the terrain, the atmospheric interference, I said no. A soldier is missing, sir. I'm not a soldier anymore. You're always a soldier. That doesn't change just because you took off the uniform. Jamal closed his eyes, saw faces he spent every day trying to forget. Martinez, his co-pilot. Sanchez, his crew chief. Brooks, his gunner. All dead because he'd made the wrong call, flown into weather that was marginal at best, pushed equipment beyond safe parameters, because 14 lives needed extraction and time was collapsing. Find someone else, Commander. There is no one else. This pilot has a 6-year-old daughter. Her name is Emma. She drew pictures for him to take on deployment, pictures of their family, their day in their house. He carries them in his helmet bag. The manipulation was obvious, crude even, but effective. Because Jamal understood exactly what that little girl felt, waiting for a parent who might never come home, drawing pictures like prayers, like offerings to gods that didn't listen. I can't help you. Can't or won't. Both. He hung up, blocked the number, stood trembling in sunlight that suddenly felt cold. Behind him a sound, mechanical, rhythmic, growing louder. He turned, looked up, saw nothing but morning sky. But the sound persisted, familiar in ways that bypassed conscious thought, that activated muscle memory he'd spent 5 years trying to deactivate. Rotor blades. MH-60R variant, probably Seahawk. The specific frequency meant Navy Special Operations configuration, heavier armor, upgraded avionics. His brain cataloged details, automatically training, overriding intention, pulling him back into a mindset he'd worked hard to escape. The helicopter appeared over the buildings, descended toward the parking lot behind the pharmacy. People stopped at phones, emerging like reflex. 21st century witness to everything, recording instead of experiencing, documenting instead of understanding. Jamal's first instinct was to run. Second instinct was to hide. Third instinct, the one that won, was to stand still and face whatever came next with something approximating dignity. The Seahawk touchdown rotor wash, creating artificial hurricane. The side door opened before the skids fully settled. Commander Martinez stepped out, Navy working uniform, crisp despite the early hour. She scanned the parking lot, found Jamal, immediately walked toward him with purpose. "Lieutenant Commander Carter." "Don't call me that. It's your rank, sir." "It was my rank, past tense." She stopped 3 feet away, close enough for conversation, far enough for propriety. Military spacing, everything measured, everything deliberate. "I apologize for the dramatic entrance. You weren't returning calls." "Because I have nothing to say." "Then just listen." She pulled out a tablet, powered it up, showed him scrambled data that looked like chaos but wasn't. Radar returns frequency analysis, atmospheric scatter patterns. This is from Brandon Mitchell's last transmission, 47 hours ago. He was flying a route you pioneered during black tide. Jamal looked despite himself, saw the data that didn't make sense unless you understood how coral reefs disrupted sonar, how titanium hulls created specific radar shadows, how training taught you to see patterns in noise. He ditched in shallow water. "We know that much. What we don't know is where exactly. Search area is over 800 square nautical miles. So search it." "We have. Satellites, reconnaissance flights, special operations teams in the water. Nothing. He's either dead or hidden so well that conventional search is useless." "Probably dead then." Martinez's jaw tightened. "You don't believe that." She was right. He didn't. The data showed survival, showed someone who'd put their aircraft down with skill and precision, who'd chosen location deliberately, who'd understood that hiding was smarter than signaling when hostile forces controlled the region. "I can't help you." "You already did. 20 seconds looking at data and you identified ditch parameters that took our analysts 6 hours to confirm." A small crowd had gathered, phones pointed, recording. Jamal felt exposure, like sunburned skin tightening against unwanted attention. "Commander, I have a daughter. She's 8. She has asthma. She needs me here, not overseas analyzing radar data." "I'm not asking you to go overseas. I'm asking you to look at information. Here. Now, 15 minutes of your time." "Why, so you can put me on a plane the moment I give you coordinates?" "No, sir, so we can send someone else to bring Brandon Mitchell home." The argument would have worked better if it wasn't wrapped in manipulation. If Martinez wasn't clearly trained in psychological operations and finding pressure points and applying force until resistance crumbled. But Jamal had trained people like her, understood the tactics, saw the strings even as they pulled. 15 minutes, he heard himself say. "Then I'm done." "Understood." Martinez gestured toward the helicopter. "We've set up mobile operations in your city. Didn't want to waste time if you agreed." Of course they had. Forward deployed assets, rapid response capability, every advantage leveraged. The Navy didn't do anything halfway. They'd known he'd say yes before he'd known it himself. The helicopter ride was brief, 3 miles to a commercial building that had been quietly requisitioned. Inside, computer terminals, communication arrays, holographic displays showing real-time satellite feeds. A dozen personnel in various uniforms, all focused on finding one missing pilot in an ocean that swallowed men like prayers. Admiral Pearson stood at the center, 62 years old and decorated like a Christmas tree. 3 stars, 4 rows of ribbons, presence that commanded rooms through sheer accumulated authority. He saw Jamal cross the space in 4 strides, extended his hand. "Lieutenant Commander Carter, thank you for coming." Jamal didn't take the hand. I'm not Lieutenant Commander anymore, sir. Son, you'll always be one of mine. The Admiral dropped his hand, gestured to the displays. Brandon Mitchell, 34. Wife, daughter, parents, 3 siblings. Good pilot. Not great, but good. Followed orders, executed missions, never gave us cause for concern. Then why is he missing? Because good isn't enough in certain conditions. The weather window was tight. He pushed when he should have aborted. Sound familiar? The comparison landed like accusation. Jamal had pushed in tight windows, had flown when others grounded, had believed skill could overcome conditions. Until the day it couldn't, until 3 men paid for his hubris. Show me the data. For 90 minutes he studied satellite passes, radio intercepts, weather systems, ocean currents. His mind shifted into operational mode, processing information through frameworks he'd thought were obsolete. Pattern recognition, threat assessment, probability matrices. Tools of his previous life dusted off and functional despite years of disuse. Here, he pointed to coordinates that made no sense unless you understood tidal mechanics and electromagnetic interference. 17 nautical miles off the Somali coast. There's a reef system that creates a radar shadow. If he put down inside that shadow, conventional search won't find him. Intelligence officer Captain Torres frowned at the map. Scans show nothing in that area. Because the coral structure absorbs and deflects, you're not looking for absence of signal, you're looking for wrong signal. Titanium airframe creates specific distortion when submerged in salt water near calcium deposits. How can you possibly know that? Jamal didn't answer. Couldn't explain years of flying in conditions that killed men, couldn't detail the education that came from surviving when others couldn't articulate the particular knowledge that only existed in the space between life and death. Admiral Pearson studied him with the intensity of someone reading subtext. How long does he have? Tide charts say high water at 1800 hours. If he's injured, probably less. If the cockpit's compromised, even less than that. Can we get to him in time? If you scramble now, maybe. The Admiral grabbed a radio, issued orders in the clipped military shorthand that compressed complex operations into efficient syllables. Personnel mobilized equipment, moved the machinery of rescue spinning into motion. All because Jamal had seen patterns that others missed. Martinez appeared at his shoulder. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me until he's home. You gave us a chance. That's more than we had an hour ago. The Admiral returned, face grave. Son, there's something you should know. The mission that took Mitchell, it wasn't routine. He was running intelligence gathering in preparation for a larger operation. What kind of operation? The kind that closes chapters. The kind that finally addresses what happened during Black Tide. Jamal's blood went cold. That's ancient history. It's current threat. The individuals responsible for the ambush that killed your crew. They're active, operational, and targeting American assets. Mitchell was doing reconnaissance when he went down. The room tilted. 5 years he'd believed his crew died in random crossfire tactical error, compounded by bad luck. 5 years of guilt over mistakes that maybe weren't mistakes, maybe were murder. You're telling me Black Tide was a setup. We're telling you we have new intelligence suggesting coordination that wasn't evident at the time. The Admiral's voice gentled recognition that he was delivering news that rewrote history. Your crew didn't die because you made the wrong call. They died because someone made any call you made would be wrong. Rage bloomed hot and sudden. Rage at being lied to, at carrying guilt that wasn't fully his, at 3 men dying for someone else's agenda. Who? That's classified. Who? The word came out harder, edged with violence he'd kept buried. We don't have confirmation. Just patterns, just probability. Jamal turned away, hands shaking. Martinez, Sanchez, Brooks. Their faces crystallized, memory sharp despite years of forced forgetting. They'd trusted him. He'd led them into a trap he hadn't seen coming, and they'd paid while he survived. That transaction never balanced, never would. Lieutenant Commander, the Admiral's voice careful now. I know this changes things. I know it reopens wounds. But Brandon Mitchell doesn't know any of this. He's just a man trying to survive long enough to see his daughter again. He needs you to stay focused. The words were manipulation wrapped in truth. tactical redirection when emotion threatened operational effectiveness. But they worked because they were also right. Mitchell's problems were immediate, concrete, solvable, but the past was none of those things. I've given you coordinates. That's all I can do. It's enough, the Admiral paused. For what it's worth, you should have gotten the Navy Cross for black tide. Politics killed the recommendation. But everyone who matters knows what you did that day, knows you're the reason 14 men went home to their families, and the reason 3 didn't, and the reason 11 more would have died if you hadn't gone back. Jamal walked toward the exit, needed air, needed space, needed his daughter in their small apartment, and the simple problems of medicine and rent. Behind him, the operations center hummed with purposeful activity, people working to save one pilot, one life, one more person who'd get to go home. Outside, morning had become afternoon. Jamal pulled out his phone, saw 7 missed calls from Mrs. Chen. His heart stopped. He called back, heard ringing that felt like years. Jamal, where are you? Nia's asking for you. She saw something on the news. What news? A video from the pharmacy parking lot, the helicopter, the Navy commander, you. It's everywhere. His stomach dropped. Of course someone had posted it. Of course the moment had gone viral. Privacy was a myth in an age where everyone carried cameras, where attention was currency, where other people's lives became entertainment. I'm coming home. Jamal, the video has millions of views. People are saying you're some kind of hero. Hero, the word was acid. Heroes saved everyone. Heroes didn't calculate acceptable losses. Heroes didn't survive when better men died. I'm not a hero, Mrs. Chen. I'm just a mechanic who had a bad day. That's not what the Navy commander in the video says. She calls you Lieutenant Commander. She mentions Operation Black Tide. He hung up, pulled up social media, found the video immediately. 8 million views and climbing. Comment section exploding with speculation, praise, conspiracy theories. Someone had identified him, pulled service photos, posted side-by-sides showing him in uniform versus coveralls. His anonymity, his carefully constructed invisibility obliterated in hours. The title read, Fired Mechanic Revealed as Navy Hero, and beneath it, Victoria Sterling's name trending. People calling for boycotts. People demanding she apologize. People who didn't know the full story making judgments from incomplete information. The internet's favorite pastime, destroying context in pursuit of narrative. His phone rang. Unknown number. He answered because nothing mattered anymore. Because privacy was already gone. Mr. Carter, this is Jennifer Wu from Channel 7 News. We'd like to interview you about... He hung up. 30 seconds later, another call. Different reporter, same request. He blocked the number. 3 more calls came immediately after. He turned off his phone, stood in the parking lot, trying to remember how to breathe through panic. This was the nightmare he'd spent 5 years avoiding. Exposure, questions. The past resurrected and dissected for public consumption. Nia would see the videos, would ask questions he couldn't answer, would discover that her father was someone else entirely, someone who'd done things and lost things and carried weight she was too young to understand. A hand touched his shoulder. Martinez. Sir, we should get you somewhere secure. I need to go home. The address from your file. There are reporters outside. Of course there were. Locusts smelling blood. How do I make this stop? You can't, not once it starts. But we can help manage it. Get you and your daughter to a safe location until things calm down. I don't want your help. With respect, sir, you need it. Those reporters will say anything, speculate endlessly, turn your life into content. Let us protect you the way you protected us. The argument was sound. His apartment was compromised. His anonymity was destroyed. Running would just make the story bigger. He needed strategy, needed tactical thinking, needed the same operational planning he'd used in combat. What do you suggest? Stay here temporarily. We've secured the building. No press access. You can call your daughter, arrange for her to be brought somewhere safe. Tomorrow, maybe the day after, interest will fade. Some other story will take over. And if it doesn't, then we adapt, same as always. Jamal nodded, too exhausted to argue. Martinez led him to a small office, commandeered space that still smelled like civilian business. He sat behind an unfamiliar desk, stared at walls covered in someone else's achievements, and tried to figure out how his life had detonated so completely in less than 48 hours. His phone, when he turned it back on, showed 83 missed calls. He ignored all of them, texted Mrs. Chen. "Can you bring Naya to this address?" He sent coordinates. "Navy will escort you. I'll explain everything." Her response: "She's scared Jamal." The video upset her. Of course it had. Seeing your father revealed as someone else, someone with secrets and a history you knew nothing about, would terrify any child. He'd protected her from his past, and in doing so had made its revelation more traumatic. "Tell her I love her. Tell her nothing's changed. I'm still her dad." "Will tell her, but Jamal, everything has changed. You know that." She was right. Everything had changed. The careful life he'd built, the intentional smallness, the strategic invisibility, all of it gone. Now he'd have to figure out who he was supposed to be when hiding was no longer possible. In the operations center, someone shouted. Good news, judging by the tone. Admiral Pearson appeared in the doorway. "Lieutenant Commander, we found him. Mitchell's alive. Rescue teams extracting now." Relief hit like warmth spreading through chest and limbs. One life saved. One father going home to his daughter. It wasn't redemption. Wasn't enough to balance the ledger of men he'd lost. But it was something. "That's good news, sir. It's because of you. Your analysis was exactly right. He was in that reef system, hiding in 18 inches of water, injured, but alive." "I'm glad he made it." The Admiral studied him with the particular intensity of senior officers deciding whether to push. "Son, we could use you. Back in uniform, back where you belong." "I belong with my daughter." "You belong wherever you choose to serve. Teaching, analyzing, training in the next generation. There are positions that don't require deployment that would allow you to be present for your child." The offer was generous, genuine even, but returning meant embracing the identity he'd spent 5 years escaping. Meant acknowledging he was Lieutenant Commander Carter, not just Jamal the mechanic, not just Nia's dad. Meant letting the past have the future. "I need time to think." "Of course, when you're ready, we'll talk." The Admiral left. Jamal sat alone, waiting for his daughter, waiting for the next disaster, waiting for whatever came after your careful life exploded in scattered pieces you'd have to reassemble into something new. Through the window, afternoon sun painted everything in shades of amber and gold. Beautiful light illuminating ugly situations. Outside somewhere, Brandon Mitchell was being rescued. Victoria Sterling was dealing with viral backlash. Reporters were crafting stories from incomplete facts. The world kept turning indifferent to individual suffering, grinding forward through every personal catastrophe. His phone buzzed. Text from a number he didn't recognize. "This is Victoria Sterling. I need to speak with you, please." He stared at the message, at the word please, from a woman who commanded rather than requested. Tomorrow's problem. Today he needed to explain to his daughter why helicopters had landed, why strangers knew their names, why the ordinary life they'd built had become extraordinary overnight. When Naya arrived, escorted by Mrs. Chen and 2 Navy personnel, her face was equal parts fear and wonder. She ran to him, wrapped small arms around his waist, held tight enough to hurt. "Dad, the video said you're a hero." "I'm just your dad, baby girl." "But you saved people, 14 people, a long time ago." She pulled back, looked up with those impossibly perceptive eyes. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because some truths were too heavy for children. Because fathers were supposed to shelter their children from darkness. Because he'd wanted her to see him as just dad, uncomplicated and fully present, not as someone haunted by ghosts and weighted with impossible choices. I wanted to protect you. From what? From my past, from things that might make you see me differently." Nia's expression shifted, something old moving across her young face. "Dad, I already know you're different. I've always known. You're strong and smart and sad sometimes, even when you smile. The video just showed me why." Children saw more than adults gave them credit for. Naya had been reading him all along, understanding things she couldn't articulate, knowing her father carried burdens even if she didn't know their names. "I'm sorry for keeping secrets." "It's okay. Grown-ups have secrets sometimes. I have secrets too." "What secrets?" "I know you're scared about money. I know my medicine is expensive. I know you work extra so I can breathe." Her words broke something inside him. This 8-year-old child, carrying awareness of their financial struggles, understanding costs she shouldn't have to consider, making herself smaller to ease burdens that were his alone to carry. Yeah, you never have to worry about that. Taking care of you is my job, my only job. Can I still be worried even if I don't have to be? The question was impossibly mature. Permission to feel concern for the person caring for her, permission to shoulder weight even when asked not to. He pulled her close again, breathed in the scent of children's shampoo and elementary school, and tried to find words adequate to the moment. You can feel whatever you feel. Always. And I'll love you through all of it. Mrs. Chen watched from the doorway, eyes glistening. I'll leave you two alone. Well, thank you, Jamal called after her, for everything. When they were alone, Naya climbed into his lap, despite being, as she frequently reminded him, too big for such things. She fit perfectly, small body tucked against his chest, heartbeat steady and sure. Dad, are you going back to the Navy? I don't know yet. Would you have to leave? Some jobs require it, others don't. I don't want you to leave. I don't want to leave either. They sat in comfortable silence, father and daughter, their small team of two facing an uncertain future. Outside, the world demanded things. Reporters wanted stories. The Navy wanted answers. Victoria Sterling wanted conversations. Everyone wanted pieces of him. But right now, in this borrowed office, Nia was the only person who mattered. Her breathing was even steady, pharmaceutical miracle working as intended. She was safe. She was healthy in this moment. She was his. Tomorrow would bring complications. Tonight, they'd go home wherever home was now that reporters knew their address, and they'd figure out the next step. They'd adapt. They'd survive. They'd do what they always did, hold together when everything wanted to tear them apart. The sun set while they sat there. Gold became orange, became purple, became dark. Transition hours, the time between, say, states when anything could happen. When mechanics became commanders. When hidden truths became public knowledge. When ordinary fathers were revealed as extraordinary men. Jamal had spent 5 years believing he'd escaped his past. Now he understood the truth. The past was patient. The past waited. And eventually the past caught everyone who ran. But maybe that was okay. Maybe revelation was liberation. Maybe being seen completely, failures and triumphs, secrets and scars, was better than hiding. He'd know soon enough. The world was watching now, and there was no going back to invisible. The Navy arranged temporary housing in a hotel 3 miles from their apartment, 2 rooms adjoining, door security posted in the hallway. Luxury by their standards, clean sheets that didn't smell like old detergent, water pressure that actually worked, silence that wasn't punctuated by neighbors arguing through thin walls. Naya explored with the wide-eyed wonder of a child for whom hotels were exotic territory. She jumped on the bed, tested the remote, discovered the mini fridge stocked with drinks they'd never buy. Dad, can I have a soda? One, don't tell your dentist. She grinned, cracked open a Sprite, settled on the bed with the television playing cartoons. Normal kid things, simple pleasures that felt profound after 48 hours of chaos. Jamal watched her memorize the moment, stored it against future hardship. His phone buzzed. Victoria Sterling again. 3rd message in 2 hours. I understand if you're angry, I would be, but I need to explain, please. He should ignore her, should let her stew in the consequences of her actions, let the viral backlash teach lessons about treating people like disposable machinery. But curiosity won, or maybe exhaustion, or maybe the small part of him that recognized she was young and scared and making mistakes everyone made when power came before wisdom. Hotel Meridian. Room 347, you have 10 minutes. Her response was immediate. Thank you, I'm on my way. 23 minutes later, traffic probably, or second thoughts, a knock came. Jamal checked the peephole, saw Victoria Sterling without her armor. No business suit, no clipboard, no cold CEO mask, just a young woman in jeans and a sweater, looking more uncertain than he'd thought possible. He opened the door. You said you needed to explain. I do. She glanced past him into the room. Is your daughter here? Next room, asleep. I won't take much of your time. She stood in the hallway like a supplicant, like someone who'd forgotten how to enter rooms with authority. Can I come in? He stepped aside, gestured. She entered, remained standing, hands clasped in front of her. Defensive posture, someone expecting attack. I'm sorry. The words came fast, pressured like she'd been rehearsing. For firing you, for how I treated you, for judging without understanding. I was wrong, completely, inexcusably wrong. Jamal crossed his arms, said nothing. Apologies were easy, meaning was harder. Victoria continued, words gaining steadiness. I inherited Sterling Automotive when I wasn't ready. My father died suddenly. The board doubted me. The employees whispered I'd destroy what he built. So I became someone I thought they'd respect. Cold, uncompromising, demanding perfection because showing weakness meant losing everything. That's an explanation, not an excuse. I know, I'm not making excuses. I'm trying to give context for behavior that has no justification. She met his eyes, held the contact. You used a technique that was better than our standard. I fired you because it was different, because I didn't understand it, because my ego couldn't handle someone knowing more than me. You fired me because I challenged your authority. Yes, that too. Her voice cracked slightly. I've spent 2 days watching that video, reading comments, seeing myself through other people's eyes. They're right to be angry. They're right to call for boycotts. I humiliated a good man, a hero, because I was too insecure to recognize excellence. The admission carried weight. Public failure was its own crucible, burning away pretense, leaving only essential truth. Victoria Sterling was learning lessons the hard way, which was often the only way that mattered. What do you want from me? Nothing. I'm not here to ask for anything. I'm here to say I'm sorry and to tell you that Sterling Automotive would be honored if you'd consider returning. As a mechanic, as director of technical operations, full salary, benefits, medical coverage for Naya, housing allowance, everything you should have had from the start. The offer hung between them, too generous, too sudden. Jamal's first instinct was suspicion. People didn't hand out senior positions to mechanics they'd fired 2 days ago, not unless they were desperate or calculating, or both. You're trying to salvage your reputation. I'm trying to do what should have been done years ago. Recognize competence. Reward excellence. Build a company culture that values people instead of consuming them. She paused. But you're also right. This helps me. Makes the board happy, stops the bleeding, turns a PR disaster into a redemption story. I won't pretend my motives are purely altruistic. Honesty was unexpected, more valuable than practiced sincerity. Jamal studied her, saw someone genuinely wrestling with failure, genuinely trying to course correct. Young leaders made mistakes. Good ones learn from them. I need time to think. Of course, take all the time you need. She moved toward the door, stopped. For what it's worth, Walter told me things. About your toolbox, about how you work, about the way you carry yourself. He said you reminded him of the best leaders he'd served under. I should have listened to him. Walter's a good man. Better than me, clearly. Small smile, self-deprecating. The offer stands. No pressure, no timeline. Just know that Sterling Automotive isn't the same place it was 3 days ago. I'm making sure of that. She left. Jamal stood in the too quiet hotel room, mind processing variables. Director of Technical Operations meant real money. Meant Nia's medicine without calculation. Meant stability, security, the margins poor people dreamed about. But it also meant visibility. Meant accepting that Lieutenant Commander Carter and Jamal the mechanic were the same person. Meant integrating identities he'd kept carefully separate. Through the adjoining door, he heard Nia stirring. She appeared moments later, hair messy from sleep, clutching the challenge coin Commander Martinez had given her. Who was that, Dad? My old boss, the one who fired me. What did she want? To apologize? To offer me a new job? Nia climbed onto the couch beside him, studied his face with those impossibly perceptive eyes. Do you want the choice? I don't know, it's complicated. Why, bye? How did you explain to an 8-year-old that accepting meant acknowledging pain you'd spent years burying, that success felt like betrayal when better men were dead, that moving forward required forgiving yourself for surviving? Because taking the job means admitting I'm the person from those videos, the Navy officer, the pilot, all the things I tried to leave behind. But you are that person, Dad. You've always been that person. I wanted to be just your father. Nothing more, nothing less. Nia leaned against him, small and warm and certain. You're my father and you're a hero, Both things can be true. Children simplified complexities adults created. Both things can be true. Permission to be whole instead of fractured. Permission to carry past and present simultaneously without choosing sides. When did you get so wise? I'm 8 3/4, basically ancient. He laughed, pulled her close, felt some tension release. Tomorrow he'd have decisions to make. Tonight he had his daughter in a clean hotel room and the simple miracle of breathing easily. Morning brought news. Brandon Mitchell had been successfully extracted, treated for dehydration, and minor injuries, was already calling his daughter via satellite phone. The rescue made national headlines coverage that inevitably circled back to Jamal's analysis, to the viral video, to the story that had captured public imagination. Admiral Pearson called it 7. Lieutenant Commander wanted to personally thank you. Mitchell's alive because of you. Glad he made it home, sir. His daughter is too. She drew you a picture. Mitchell says she insisted. Something about heroes helping heroes. The image hit harder than it should. A 6-year-old girl who'd gotten her father back, expressing gratitude in the only currency children had. Crayon and paper and innocent faith that good things happened because good people made them happen. I'd like to see it, sir. I'll have it sent over. And Lieutenant Commander, the offer stands. We'd be honored to have you back in any capacity you'd accept. Respectfully, sir, I'm still considering civilian options. Understood. But remember, serving doesn't always mean deploying. Sometimes it means teaching the next generation, passing on knowledge that saves lives. That's service too. The call ended. Jamal made breakfast Hotel Continental, offering that Naya treated like feast and tried to imagine futures that didn't feel like compromise. Director of Technical Operations, Navy instructor. Both offered stability. Both meant being visible. Both required accepting he was more than the small life he'd carved from larger wreckage. His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost declined, then recognized the area code. Colorado Springs. That meant Peterson Space Force Base. That meant someone very senior calling personally. Lieutenant Commander Carter's voice was gravelly, aged by decades of command. This is General Morrison, NORAD. I flew with your father in the Gulf War. Jamal's breath caught. His father, dead 15 years, had been Air Force. Fighter pilot who'd made general before cancer ended both career and life. They'd been close once before teenage rebellion and different military branches created distance they'd never bridged. Sir, I'm honored you'd call. Your father would be proud. What you did during Black Tide, what you're doing now for your daughter, that's the kind of character he valued, the kind he tried to instill in you. I'm not sure he'd see it that way. Oh, he would. Your father understood that real courage wasn't flying missions. Real courage was making impossible choices and living with consequences. You've done both. The words landed in spaces Jamal hadn't realized needed filling. Paternal approval transmitted through proxy, 15 years delayed, arriving exactly when doubt peaked. Maybe the universe had timing after all. Thank you, sir. That means more than you know. He left you a letter. Did your mother ever give it to you? A letter. Wrote it before he died. Told me to make sure you got it if anything happened. I thought your mother would handle it, but maybe it got lost in grief. I still have the original if you'd like it. Jamal's throat tightened. Yes, sir, I would. I'll send it today. And son, whatever you decide, Navy, civilian, anything, make sure it's for you, not for what you think others need. Your father learned that lesson late. You're young enough to learn it early. The call disconnected. Jamal sat stunned, mind reeling through implications. His father had written a letter. His father had thoughts about courage and character and impossible choices. His father had cared enough to commit words to paper to prepare wisdom for after death. Naya appeared already dressed, face bright with morning energy. Can we go home today? I miss my room. We'll see. There might still be reporters. I don't mind reporters. They just want to know about you being a hero. I'm not. He stopped himself. Denying it didn't make it less true. Didn't change what he'd done, who he'd been, what those actions meant to people who weren't him. Okay, we'll go home. The apartment, when they arrived via Navy escort that made sure no press followed, looked unchanged. Same crayon drawings on walls, same secondhand furniture, same space that contained their entire world. But something felt different. Maybe Jamal himself was different. Maybe external revelation forced internal shift. Mrs. Chen met them in the hallway, relief flooding her weathered face. "Oh, good, you're back. I was worried." "We're fine. Thank you for everything." The reporters came asking questions. I told them nothing. Your business is your business. "I appreciate that more than you know." She studied him with the particular wisdom of elderly women who'd seen every human variation. "You look different. Lighter somehow." "Just tired." "No, not tired. Something else?" She smiled. "Sometimes secrets are heavy. Letting them go makes space for other things." She returned to her apartment, left Jamal contemplating truth in casual observations. Secrets were heavy. He'd carried them so long, he'd forgotten what unburdened felt like. Maybe Mrs. Chen was right. Maybe revelation created space for whatever came next. That afternoon, his phone rang. "Victoria Sterling. The board wants to meet with you. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Would that work?" "What's the meeting about?" "Formally offering you the position, discussing terms, letting them see your real, not just viral video mythology." They could say no, decide I'm too controversial. They could, but I'll make sure they don't. How? By reminding them that companies succeed or fail based on people, that you're the kind of person others follow, that turning you away would be the biggest mistake Sterling Automotive ever made. Confidence had returned to her voice, but different now. Not cold certainty, but earned conviction. She'd learned something over the past 48 hours. Maybe several things. 9 a.m., I'll be there. Thank you, Jamal. Truly. That evening, Nia did homework at the kitchen table while Jamal cooked real food, chicken, vegetables, rice nutrition that didn't come from boxes. She worked through math problems with the determination of someone who'd inherited stubbornness from both parents. "Dad, if you take the new job, will we stay here?" "Probably not. The position comes with housing allowance. We could afford somewhere better." "I like it here. I know which stairs creak. I know Mrs. Chen and where the good ice cream truck parks." He understood. Home wasn't about quality of space. Home was familiarity, safety, known quantities in an uncertain world. But he also understood that better housing meant better schools, safer neighborhoods, opportunities Nia deserved. We could find somewhere new that becomes familiar. Together, she considered this pencil tapping against paper. Would I have my own bathroom? Maybe. Then okay. I could get used to new. Children were resilient in ways adults forgot to be. Adaptable. Open to change when change came wrapped in adventure instead of loss. Maybe that was the lesson. Maybe moving forward didn't require abandoning past, but reframing it as foundation for future. The letter from General Morrison arrived at 7:30 via courier. Thick envelope, his father's handwriting on the outside, time-faded but legible. For Jamal, when he needs it. Naya was in the bath. Jamal sat on the couch, held the envelope, tried to prepare for words from beyond death. His father had been stern, demanding, impossible to please. But he'd also been honorable, brave, someone who'd given his life to service. Complex man rendered simple by distance and memory. He opened the envelope, carefully unfolded pages covered in his father's precise script. "Son, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Cancer doesn't take prisoners, and I was never good at negotiating. I'm writing this because there are things I should have said while alive, but didn't, because men of my generation confuse silence with strength. You are my greatest achievement. Not my rank, not my missions, not my decorations. You, the man you're becoming, the officer you'll be. I see in you qualities I spent my entire career trying to cultivate. Integrity, courage, compassion. The last one especially. I never had enough of that. You'll face impossible choices, situations where every option is wrong, where good men die regardless of decisions. I've been there. It doesn't get easier. But I learned something over 40 years in uniform. Leaders are measured not by outcomes they can't control, but by how they honor the cost others pay. If men die under your command, grieve them. Remember them. Let their sacrifice mean something. But don't let guilt destroy you. Survival isn't betrayal. Living is how you honor the dead, by being better, by learning, by making sure their deaths purchase something worthwhile. I'm proud of you, son. I should have said that more. Should have shown you that pride instead of hiding it behind tough standards and harsh corrections. I believed I was preparing you for hard reality. Maybe I was just scared that if I loved you softer, the world would break you harder. But you're not breakable. You're strong in ways I never was. Strong enough to bend without breaking. Strong enough to survive. Strong enough to choose your own path even if it differs from mine. Whatever comes, whoever you become, know this: you are enough, just as you are. Without the uniform, without the achievements, without proving anything to anyone. You are enough. Love, Dad. Jamal read it 3 times. Tears came unexpected, silent washing over face he didn't bother wiping. Permission he'd spent 15 years needing. Validation that survival wasn't betrayal. Understanding that fathers struggled too, that love expressed poorly was still love. Naya emerged from the bathroom in pajamas, saw his face cross to him without hesitation. Dad, why are you sad? Not sad, something else. He showed her the letter. This is from your grandfather. He died before you were born. What does it say? That being enough doesn't require being perfect. She crawled into his lap, too big for it, but fitting anyway. Grown-ups forget that sometimes. That's why kids have to remind them. You're very smart, you know that. Runs in the family. They sat together while evening deepened outside. Jamal thought about his father, about the 3 men he'd lost, about Brandon Mitchell going home to his daughter. Life wasn't about saving everyone. Life was about showing up, trying your best, honoring cost, and finding meaning in survival. Tomorrow he'd meet with Sterling's board. Tomorrow he'd make decisions. Tomorrow he'd step into whatever came next with eyes open and heart less burdened. Tonight he had this moment, this small apartment, this extraordinary child, this hard-won peace. The board meeting happened in Sterling's executive conference room. Mahogany table leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. 8 board members, all older than Victoria, all carrying the particular skepticism of people who'd seen trends come and go. Jamal wore the only button-down shirt he owned, pressed carefully, paired with pants that almost matched. Not executive fashion, but presentable. Authentic. He was done performing versions of himself designed to please others. The board chairman, Richard Ashworth, 65 and wealthy enough to make judgment from insulation, spoke first. Mr. Carter, we've reviewed the situation. The viral video, the military service, Miss Sterling's recommendation for promotion. I'm listening, sir. Frankly, we're concerned. You have no management experience, no college degree. Your resume is 3 years of floor work and a military career you apparently wanted hidden. That's accurate. So explain why we should offer you a senior position. Jamal met his eyes, refused to perform submission. Because competence matters more than credentials. Because I understand systems, mechanical and human, in ways textbooks don't teach. Because people respect leaders who've actually done the work, who understand what floor-level employees face. That's quite confident for someone who was fired 2 days ago. I was fired for being better than expected, for using advanced techniques that threaten someone's ego. If you want a company full of people who color inside lines someone else drew, I'm not your candidate. If you want someone who solves problems creatively, who trains others to think instead of follow, who builds culture through respect instead of fear, then maybe I am. Victoria, sitting at the end of the table, smiled slightly. Several board members exchanged glances. Ashworth's expression remained neutral, calculating. The publicity helps, another board member admitted. Hero mechanic promoted by CEO. Good optics. But optics fade. What happens in 6 months when nobody cares about the video? In 6 months, you'll have a technical operations division that runs 23% more efficiently with 40% fewer safety complaints. I've seen Sterling's numbers. There's massive room for improvement. Bold claims. Provable outcomes. Give me 90 days. If productivity doesn't increase and culture doesn't improve, I'll resign. No severance, no complaints. The room went quiet. Jamal had just offered accountability that executives rarely accepted. Results or resignation, stake in outcome instead of empty promises. Ashworth leaned back, studied him with new intensity. What's your leadership philosophy, Mr. Carter? Same as it was in the military. People work hardest for leaders who see them, who listen, who treat mistakes as learning instead of fireable offenses. You want efficiency. Start by making employees feel valued. Everything else follows. Miss Sterling, you've been quiet. Your thoughts. Victoria stood, walked to the windows, turned back to face the table. Gentlemen, Sterling Automotive is failing. Not financially yet, but culturally. Employee retention is terrible. Safety incidents are up. Customer satisfaction is declining. We can keep pretending efficiency metrics will save us, or we can acknowledge we need actual change. We hired you to provide that change, Ashworth countered. And I failed because I prioritized control over connection rules, over relationships, my ego over expertise. Jamal Carter is offering everything I couldn't deliver. Everything my father built this company on before I inherited it and made it cold. Her voice cracked slightly. Vulnerability in corporate setting. Risk that could backfire or succeed based on how men in suits valued authenticity. I'm asking you to trust me one more time. To let me bring in someone who can actually lead. If it fails, fire us both. But if it works, we save Sterling Automotive from becoming another corporation that forgot people matter. Silence stretched. Jamal watched faces calculate, risk versus reward, watched old men weigh change against comfort. Finally, Ashworth spoke. 90 days. Provisional appointment. We'll review metrics quarterly. He looked at Jamal. Prove us right, Mr. Carter. Or prove Miss Sterling wrong. Yes, sir. The meeting ended. Board members filed out, some offering handshakes, others withholding judgment. Victoria remained waiting until they were alone. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For giving me a chance to fix my mistake. For not making me beg. We all deserve second chances, yourself included. She smiled, genuine warmth replacing corporate polish. I want this to work. Not just for me, for everyone. The mechanics deserve better. You deserve better. Hell, I deserve to lead a company I'm actually proud of. Then let's make that happen. They shook hands, partnership formed from wreckage of catastrophic first impression. Sometimes the worst beginnings led to strongest foundations. Sometimes you had to break things completely before rebuilding them properly. 90 days became a whirlwind. Jamal restructured training programs, implemented safety protocols, learned in military systems, started listening sessions where mechanics could voice concerns without fear. Slowly, cautiously, culture shifted. People started offering suggestions, started caring about quality instead of just completing tasks, started believing their work mattered to someone. Nia thrived. Better insurance meant better specialists, better medications, breathing treatments that actually worked. Her attacks decreased from weekly to monthly to rare. She gained weight, gained confidence, stopped carrying fear in her small chest. Watched her father lead with the same intensity she'd watched him fix cars, understanding now that excellence lived in the person, not the job. They moved to a better apartment. 3 bedrooms, full bathroom, kitchen, where appliances weren't held together with hope. Nia got her own space decorated with posters and artwork and the accumulated treasures of childhood. Home became a place where fear didn't live, where medical emergencies weren't inevitable, where future felt possible. Walter retired with full pension and gratitude, told Jamal privately that seeing him lead proved everything he'd suspected. Tyler and the younger mechanics learned that questioning wasn't insubordination, that innovation came from challenging assumptions, that the best leaders encourage growth instead of demanding compliance. 3 months after taking the position, Jamal stood in the shop watching mechanics work with efficiency that looked like pride. Productivity was up 27%. Safety incidents were down 42%. Employee satisfaction had improved dramatically. Numbers that told stories about cultural transformation. Victoria appeared beside him, tablet in hand. Board meeting tomorrow. They're impressed. Ashworth actually smiled. That's good. It's more than good. They're discussing permanent appointment. Full benefits, long-term contract, everything. I'm just doing the job. You're exceeding every metric we discussed. You're proving that leadership matters more than credentials. You're saving Sterling Automotive. He turned to face her. We're saving it together. You've changed too. The mechanics notice. I had good example. Someone who showed me that strength and compassion aren't mutually exclusive. They stood in comfortable silence watching transformation they'd built together. Sometimes redemption was mutual. Sometimes the person doing the firing and the person getting fired both needed second chances. That evening, Jamal picked up Naya from school. She ran to the car, backpack bouncing, face bright with news. Dad, guess what? We're doing family presentations again, and I told Mrs. Rodriguez about you and Operation Black Tide, and she said I could bring in your challenge coin and show everyone. That's great, baby girl. Will you come to the presentation? Other parents come sometimes. Work would be busy, meetings scheduled, systems to oversee. But watching his daughter present their story, watching her stand proud instead of embarrassed, watching her own who they were, that mattered more than any corporate responsibility. I'll be there, front row. She beamed, launched into detailed explanation of her presentation plans. Jamal listened, heartful in ways money couldn't buy. Success couldn't measure, achievement couldn't capture. This was the victory. His daughter healthy and happy and unafraid. His life integrated instead of fractured. His identity whole. They drove home through evening traffic, radio playing songs they sang together, slightly off-key but joyful. Ordinary moment. Precious moment. The kind he'd fought for without knowing what he was fighting toward. At home, Nia went straight to homework while Jamal started dinner. Their rhythm, their routine. Different apartments, same rituals, proof that home was carried rather than located. Through the window, sunset-painted sky in shades of amber and violet. Beautiful light that made everything look gentle. Jamal stood watching, spatula in hand, mind quiet, in ways it hadn't been for years. Then distant but unmistakable, the sound of rotor blades. Helicopter passing overhead, probably medical transport or news crew, nothing to do with him. But the sound was there, triggering memories that no longer felt like ambush. He listened, didn't tense, didn't flinch. Just acknowledged the sound for what it was, echo of past life, reminder of who he'd been, proof he'd survived. The sound faded, distance, swallowing noise. Jamal returned to cooking, to the simple act of feeding his daughter, to the ordinary miracle of being present for what mattered. Somewhere other pilots flew missions. Other fathers made impossible choices. Other men carried burdens visible and invisible. But here in this kitchen, with its working appliances and its absence of fear, Jamal Carter had found peace. Not forgetting, not denying, just integration, just wholeness, just the quiet victory of making it through darkness into the other side. Nia appeared, wrapped arms around his waist from behind. Love you, Dad. Love you more, baby girl. Not possible. She was right. Love this fierce, this complete, this transformative. It couldn't be measured or compared. It simply was. Foundation for everything. Reason for survival. Proof that heroes were made not in extraordinary moments, but in daily choices to show up, to care, to protect what mattered most. Outside, the helicopter sound was completely gone. Inside, dinner was almost ready. Tomorrow would bring challenges, always did, but tonight they had this moment, this peace, this hard-won, precious, perfectly ordinary life. And that was enough. More than enough. That was everything.